Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great, great. We're just waiting for others to show up, so please bear with us.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Good evening, and bear with us. We're waiting for a couple of others to come in.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. Well, I'm gonna get started in about 2 minutes,
Okie dokie.
and I apologize for having everyone wait.
Oh, no problem. Is anyone else in here?
There's Julius from Growing Hope is in here. Myself is Farmer TC, and there's a participant named Star is in here, and yourself.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Where if it gets warm and moist, you might have to turn on the dehumidifier upstairs.
Okay, sure.
You don't want the humidity to get over 6.
Yeah. We should probably.
Months.
I'm on a Zoom thing.
Right now, it's not gonna matter.
You still have to work on Monday?
Nope.
Has it started yet?
I do not think so.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Appreciate that. I had to walk away for a minute.
I can understand that.
Yeah. The life of an octopus.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And thank you all.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating today. It's Farmer TC of Roller Run Acres. And today we're going to be discussing cultivating garlic and alliums. To start off, we want to thank Growing Hope for providing this opportunity for space where we can share um, the garden space. I'm going to the next page. Like I said, we want to thank Growing Hope. We also want to acknowledge Great Lakes Garlic Farm for giving us the opportunity to be hosting and being supplied with their garlic and also their garlic scapes. Growing Hope's mission is to foster an equitable and sustainable local food systems where all people are empowered to grow, sell, buy, and prepare and eat nourishing food. Growing Hope is also in Ypsilanti. Ypsilanti is a community where all people, particularly those with barriers due to race, class, culture, language, ability, and mobility, have access to nourishing local food that is culturally appropriate and affordable, can grow and prepare their own harvest, and may earn a living as a food grower, producer, or entrepreneur. Growing Hope also has a marketplace hall, an incubator kitchen. They are located on 922 West Michigan Ave, about a half a mile downtown Ypsilanti. For our organization is Ruler Run Acres. Our mission is to teach gardening and farming for all skill levels and to instill the joy of growing your own fresh, healthy, and sustainable food systems. Ruler Run Acres is also a 4-H developing program. It is for youth outreach program for the grant universities, cooperative extension services, and the United States Department of Agriculture. We are a part of the 4-H, which is Willow for Willow Run, Ann for Ann Arbor, Ypsi for Ypsilanti, and throughout Washtenaw County. We are a horticultural farm hub for the extension of Michigan State Extension. 4-H has many visions. One vision is that a world that reaches youth and adults to learn and grow and work together, the catalyst for positive change. 4-H also promotes a promise to American kids. In 2025, 4-H will reflect the population demographics and vulnerable population diversity, needs, and social conditions of the country. This vision has the elements of inclusion, caring adults, serving at minimum 1 in 5 youth. And the volunteers and staff reflect the diversity of the population. 4-H mission empowers youth to reach their full potential working and learning in partnerships with caring adults. The mission of the 4-H is to provide meaningful opportunities for all youth and adults to work together to create sustainable community change. This is accomplished with three primary contact areas. or mission areas: civic engagement and leadership, healthy living, and science. These mission areas resonate the founding purpose of extension through agriculture, community leadership, quality of life, and technology transfer. In the context of 21st century challenges and opportunities, I would like to begin today by again thanking everyone that is here today. My name is TC Collins of Rural Run Acres. I'm the founder of Rural Run Acres. I started at the age of 2 by my great grandparents. They were descendants of slaves. What is most important for me, and this is just a summary that's on the screen that you see, is that I love gardening and farming. I garden and farm throughout Michigan in areas that are in need of gardening. And also, I volunteer to help the community as best that I can. No, I'm not a professional farmer and I'm not a professional gardener, but I'm still learning. And this is something that I love doing. Beginning with garlic, it starts with the soil. The most important thing is knowing your soil. Knowing your soil is very important. For one, the texture of the soil. We determine the drainage of the soil. We determine if your ground is too clay, too sandy, too much gravel, high in pH, or better yet, it has a sandy loam and it can grow different varieties of plant life. Knowing the texture is very important because you don't want your soil to be too soggy, but you also don't want it to have too much clay. So, working with your soil will determine the strength of your soil conditions. Structure. The soil is very important because if it clumps together or if the mycelium and the bacteria cannot grow, the nutrients won't work together. So, it's very important to know the structure of your soil. pH. pH is very important. It determines how much plants can grow in a certain area. Too much pH, such for an example, if it's too high in pH, asparagus won't grow. If it's too low in pH, peanuts or radishes won't grow. So the best way to test your soil is take a sample of your soil and send it to your local nursery or local farm extension, and they will test the soil for you. So that way you can find out what amendments can be added to your soil. And we will talk about that later on in this segment. Nutrients. Nutrients help the soil, which is very important. For an example, compost, manure, soil amendments, cover crops, leaf mulch, wood chips, or better yet, it can be even shredded paper. A lot of things can be added to the soil to bring nutrients to the soil. So that way it can be adding a balanced soil for soil texture, soil structure, soil pH level, and soil nutrients. So knowing your soil is very important. Sometimes when I get a chance, I don't do it all the time, and it's up to you to do it. Is always know where your soil is coming from before you put it in your garden, and also know how much of the soil that you're going to use in your garden because it's very important. Because if you add too much matter to your soil, it can do more harm to your soil. What does that have to do with garlic or the alliums? Garlic is a very versatile plant and it loves growing in different conditions. But if it has too much clay, it will not survive. Same with onions. Onions itself needs to have good drainage. Too much moisture, it becomes and it can become rotten. So having root rot is very important and also having dry to medium soil moisture is very important. When I talked about pH earlier, pH is very important because lime adds pH to the soil. So think of it this way. When we get warm, our natural defense is that our body hormones, it gives off an odor. It could be a pleasant odor or it can be an unpleasant odor. Same thing goes within to the soil. If you add too much matter to the soil, it can increase a bad bacteria or it can decrease a good bacteria. So adding pH is very crucial to your soil. So it's always good to test your soil first, then adding the proper amounts of lime into your soil can balance your soil correctly. It is very important to always wear gloves and wear a mask when using lime because even though it is a natural compound, it is always best to wear gloves with any type of soil amendments. Garlic loves to grow in well-defined soil such as in a pH level 6.0 to 7.5. Now you say, what do these numbers mean? Well, think of it this way. If you eat a lemon, that lemon has a high pH level, but is also acidic. So that would be into the 5 to 6 point level. Now, if you chew and taste a piece of lettuce, that lettuce itself is in the 1.2 acidic level or the pH level because it has less acidic to it. So, in the soil itself, depending on what region you live in, we live in Southeast Michigan. The Southeast Michigan soil needs soil amendments, even though that we are in the Great Lakes. It is always good to add soil amendments, manure compost to your soil to add the pH level higher, in addition to pH. Garlic loves pH, a high content of pH. Potatoes love pH. Um, Asparagus loves pH. If you are a flower grower and if you have rhododendrons and blueberries love higher pH. But on the other hand, if you don't have cherry trees, but you have an apple tree or a pear tree, the pH level will be a lot lower because it has a different molecule structure into the soil. AG lime is very important. It's a lot different than the regular traditional lime. AG lime is also known as agricultural lime. It is a soil conditioner that is crushed from limestone or dolomite limestone. It is a good type of limestone, but it dissolves and it releases at the base and lowers the acidic level. Reason why I talk about this lime compared to the lime that I was talking about here, when you see the person that's spreading this lime, this type of lime is good for plants such as corn, soybean, and other type of legumes. It is very important to know what type of lime, what you're using your application for. I know this may be confusing, but it's always good to know to ask someone, do they use lime on their soil? Because lime breaks up the soil and it also adds nutrients to the soil. So that way it can further the growth of growing cycles. So, for an example, a lot of farmers, when they have dead cattle and they dig a pit out and they put that dead cattle into that field, they cover the base and they also cover that cattle with lime. That also helps the decomposition structure to decompose the molecules to help build and break down the molecules for decomposing in the field, and it also brings nutrients to the soil. Now, this type of lime is also very important because it is a mineral that has high calcium carbonate and has higher magnesium. For this type of lime, it is good for farmers when they want to grow um, ramps or they want to grow wild garlic, tomatoes, because this type is a neutral base type of lime and it's good to do it once every 3 years for your soil. And it has good traces of magnesium, which is also good for nitrogen based plants and it promotes good green vegetation before flowering. This is a nutrient chart. The nutrient chart, it does look confusing, but it's also very important to always get to understand where you at are on your chart. So if you have green grass in your front yard, you are right here in the middle where it says nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, magnesium. This is where you're growing your grass at. But when you want to grow other plants that are strong and acidic, you are right over here where it says iron, boron, can I pronounce that word right? But it's copper and zinc, and mag, magnesium. Hopefully, I got that word right. But these right here is good for plants such as garlic and also onions or olive plants. And it's very good for when you want to grow elephant garlic. A lot of people are trying to grow elephant garlic, which is a large bulb. So when you are in this category of this pH level from, I would say, from 5.0 to right at 7.5 is the optimum baseline of growing garlic. And again, always test your soil. A small kit can cost anywhere from $7 or to an elaborate kit can cost you probably about $35. Soil amendments. Soil amendments is very good. Good soil is developed to address specific plant needs. Soil can be premixed and ready to be specifically formulated for for certain plants for your desire to grow. So for an example, if you want to grow lettuce, you want to use a good compost and a good wood blend mix so that way it won't be too moist for soil amendments. It can also be added to the soil to help prevent compaction in clay soils that can help prevent root rot and to promote strong root growth. So also, if you want to grow garlic, vermiculite. If you want to use agriculture, vermiculite is also good for helping with drainage. You can find these individual amendments by growing your own or asking other people what do they use for their soil amendments to adjust to your soil structure. You can add sand, you can add seashells for drainage, you can add eggshells for calcium that some soils are calcium depleted. By adding eggshells, it brings up the calcium level. Now, compost is very good to understand about compost. Know where your compost come from. It could be aged manure. Anything that's from 6 months out is very ideal to use aged manure. It also helps rich in plant nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Organic matter is very important. It can be green compost to be in aged with and mixed with brown compost. So learning about different soil amendments for your soil for developing garlic is very important. Nitrogen is very important when we talk about nutrients. Garlic also needs more nitrogen than most people think. A lot of people grow different varieties of garlic, but they don't know which one they're growing. So it's best to know either you're growing soft neck garlic, or you're growing elephant garlic, or you're growing artichoke garlic. Now, what's most important growing garlic is that the ideal time to grow garlic, if you're growing hardneck garlic, is right before the first or second frost in October, which is very important because it gives you the optimum time for the plants to overwinter and they will grow. And it takes anywhere from 200 to 225 days to have a successful garlic clove to develop into a garlic bulb. Adding compost. Now, for me, it is very important to let you know that broadcasting compost over the whole area, it could be wasteful, but for me, I like to dig a hole, put the compost and the manure into that hole, and then I put the garlic clove into that area. I don't compost and I do not spread manure all in that area because once you start broadcasting that whole area, it promotes weeds to grow rapidly. So localizing your compost and your manure into one local area per plant is very ideal. So that way you won't have a lot of weeds growing in the next year. Phosphorus is very important for garlic, which is very important. A lot of people do not like it, but I like it myself. Sulfur is very important. It is also a good compound for garlic because garlic needs a lot of compounds to produce a very strong and a bold, flavorful garlic. You have nutrition deficiency in your soil. When you grow your garlic the following year, you will taste that taste in garlic. So by adding soil amendments to your garlic soil, it will not just garlic, but garlic and olives itself. By putting that into your soil, it helps promotes healthy growth, and it also helps with the leaves to grow out fully. It will also help with if you wanted to germinate other plants to grow. Talking about aged compost is very important. Not all manure is manure. The best manure is to use is know where it comes from. Having aged manure, if it's aged 6 months and out, is very important. Using fresh manure can have bacteria. It also can cause having parasites into your food and into your system. So having aged compost and it's broken down from 6 months out is very important. Or you can say rotten manure when it's aged out. Any fresh manure is too hot. It has parasites, it has organisms in it. So you want to make sure you know where you get your compost from or aged manure. What's most important with aged manure is that if you want to promote nitrogen rich soil, using poultry manure is very important to use at the very beginning. Using cow manure is very good for adding more nutrients to the soil. But be wary that when you use horse manure itself can have a lot of seeds in it. So it's not broken down as much as in cow manure or as in poultry manure. So knowing how to work with manure is very important. But also wear gloves when working with cow manure or any manure itself. Do not use any type of cat or dog or human feces because it has too much parasites. It can be dangerous and it can be unhealthy in your food. Other ways to adjust your soil is compost tea. A lot of people do not know what compost tea is, but for an example, get a 5 gallon bucket. If you have a lot of leaves in the fall, put those leaves into a 5 gallon bucket, let them break down, add water to it, and then that water is a concentrate tea mix that you can pour onto your plants. So it's good to learn and how to deal with compost tea. Compost tea. Compost tea is very important and is pretty much free. All you got to do is just collect your leaves, put them in 5 gallon buckets, let them break down, put water on it, pour it out. Once you do that, you can also use the waste of the leaves after they break down and put that as a dressing around your alliums or other plants. It's good for moisture control and it also keeps some fungus and bugs away. Cover crops, such as green manure, is very important. So when you want to grow winter wheat, winter wheat is good manure. Comfrey is a good manure. Breaking up the leaves, putting that into the soil. Sweet peas is a good green manure that brings nutrients to the soil and helps break up the soil. The most important thing is don't till during that time of your cover crops. You want your cover crops to grow and gain strength, which is very important because if you till the plants up while they're still growing, then you won't have anything for nourishing the plants later on in the season. So it's good to give them an optimum time to grow. Peat moss is very important. A lot of people use peat moss. I use peat moss, but I use small amounts of peat moss. Um, it helps improve the soil. It helps improve drainage. It helps to use in a place of sand. and soil mixtures. So working with peat moss is very important. Perlite. Perlite is volcanic rock and it's small particles of rock that you might see in plant bags of plant soil, the little bitty tiny rocks. Is good for drainage. My suggestion to you is that if you want to make your own potting soil, use 1/3 of perlite, 1/3 of peat moss, and 1/3 of compost. Mix those together. Please wear a mask and gloves, and that would be your homemade potting mix. That way you can control what you're putting in your potting mix, and you can use that for both pots, plants, and in garden space. Mulch is good, but know where your mulch come from because a lot of people get lawn bags from the side of the curb thinking that it's nothing but just grass in there. Some people put little doggy bags with doggy animal poop in there, tie it up and put it right along in that garden bag. So please be wary that when you do get mulch, know where you get your free mulch from because it could have a surprise that you don't want. Steps for growing garlic. Again, at the very beginning, we talked about test the soil. Number two, amend the soil. Number three, prepare the soil. The best place and the best idea of growing garlic is a nice area that has plenty of sun. Garlic grows best when it's 6 to 10 hours of sunlight. If it grows into a shade, it's not going to develop to a mature garlic or onion garlic bulb. So always grow in a nice, good drainage, sunny location. Tilling the soil is best 14 days to 17 days before you plant the garlic. Reason for aeration. Adding air to the soil brings new microbes to the soil. So when you till the soil before at least 2 weeks to 17 days out, it's good for optimum aeration for your soil. Planting your garlic. For me, planting mini garlic in hill rows when you have a section of garlic 6 inches apart is good and ideal because if you have too much space between the garlic, then you won't get many garlic when you harvest. So 6 inches is a good ideal point of growing garlic. And you always want to look at your baby finger as the ideal depth of how deep to put it in. At least 1.5 to 2 inches into the ground. No deeper than that because garlic wants to expand and it wants to grow out. So again, 6 inches apart and at least 1.5 to 2 inches in depth. You want to water your garlic once you put it into the ground because it's very important to start root growth. After 10 to 14 days after planting, you will see some root growth. You want to always remember the first or second frost is the ideal time to plant garlic in the fall of March. I mean, in the fall of October. Sorry about that. Now, after you plant it, after you water it, you want to mulch it. Reason for mulching your garlic is because you want to keep the moisture beneath the soil. Because if you have an airspace canopy with no leaf mulch on top, when we have cold winters and the soil evaporates, that evaporates the moisture that's around that garlic and it also evaporates that moisture and that soil amendments. So you want to put a nice good 2 to 3 inch mulch on top of your garlic. And garlic is strong enough to poke right on through in the springtime. So don't worry about that. Now, number seven, waiting for your garlic. Now you just planted your garlic between October and early November. Now it's growing from November all the way up until April 1st. That garlic clove has developed and overwintered, and now it's starting to develop with the nutrients that you gave that garlic clove to develop into a garlic bulb. From April 1st, from when the soil starts to warm, the microbes and the mycelium in the area starts to congregate and help the growth of that garlic clove to be in a garlic bulb. It starts to develop all the way from April 1st to at least the second week of June. By that time, you will have a garlic large enough that would develop a garlic scape. Now, I'm going to skip to these other pictures and I will talk to you about a garlic scape. This is the anatomy of a garlic. When you have a garlic clove at the very beginning, like I said in October, this develops into a garlic bulb. Now, like I said at the very beginning, I grow hardneck garlic. Reason for is because I want more yield from my harvest for a longer period of time. I would like to have that garlic clove here from a hardneck garlic develop into a bulb by April 1st. By April 1st, this develops into a long stem. All this, everything from a garlic is edible. This here is the garlic scape. When you cut off the garlic scape, it stops the energy from the garlic here to develop into a stronger, bigger bulb. The bulbs here are the little seeds. Now, two things to remember, and I don't want to confuse you. This is the garlic clove. From here to here, it takes 220 days to develop a garlic bulb. If you want to do it the hard fashioned way and the long way, from here, which is this right here, if you take those little pods there and grow it into the ground, it will grow a garlic, but it would take you 3 years to develop a garlic. So that's why a lot of people in the community, we cut off the garlic scape. The garlic scape is still edible. You can saute this in olive oil with salt and pepper. You can puree it and make it into pesto. You can roast it. There's plenty of things that you can do with this piece of garlic right here at the top. The leaves are edible. You can make garlic powder by just the green stems, which is very important. So learning about the garlic anatomy is very important. I don't grow soft neck garlic. Soft neck garlic, you can start in the month of April and harvest by August. You will still get a garlic. You won't get a garlic scape. You will get a softer bulb, but you won't get as many cloves. So for my choice, I grow hardneck garlic so I can get more garlic bulbs. That's just my style of preference. And number two, elephant garlic. You can grow elephant garlic in the north, which is which is still a annual. But if you grow more in the south, it is a perennial. So elephant garlic has two different types of lifestyles. Growing in the north, because we are in the cold, it is an annual. But if you grow it in the south, it is a perennial. Artichoke garlic, which is very important. It looks just like it has the structure of an artichoke, but it's a lot different from both elephant garlic, soft neck garlic, and hard neck garlic. I do not grow asparagus, artichoke garlic this year or last year, but I grew it years prior. It's a wonderful garlic, but for me, I like growing hard neck garlic. When I talked about the cloves, this is a hard neck garlic in the inside. You see, you have different cloves, different ones inside, and then you have the little stem that's in the middle. Where in the soft neck garlic, similar, but you get less of the cloves, and it has a ununiform structure, as in you have a structure for the hard neck. Up here at the top, these are the different stages of the garlic scape. Like I said at the very beginning, a lot of people cut these off. It helps promote a bigger bulb at the bottom. These are all edible. They can be cooked in different ways. But if you take these seeds right here, it would take you 3 years to grow this into a garlic compared to having this type of variety of garlic, it only takes you 220 days, or this one, it would take you at least 220 days over here for soft neck garlic. This is the spring garlic. This is the fall to summer garlic. These are the garlic scapes that I talked about. These are going from $5 to almost $17 a pound in the early spring and summer. These are garlic scapes. If you do not cut these off, it furthers the growth of the garlic to staying a small bulb, and you won't get a large garlic bulb at the bottom. All the energy are coming to the tops. So that's why a lot of people cut these garlic scapes off. So it's very important to know that when you see these little guys come out, cut them immediately. Chestnut garlic. This type of garlic is a red, strong garlic, very bold in taste. This is the one that I love growing the most. It's a nice spicy garlic. It has a variety that is on the from a 1 to 10 in spiciness. I would give this a 9. That's how spicy it is. It's up to the person to know if they like hot or spicy or mild and sweet garlic. For me, I love all varieties of garlic. There are over 12 different types of garlic, and in that category, there's also 600 and more sub varieties of garlic. This here is a hardneck garlic, and it's one variety. Italian purple, Gambino. This is another wonderful garlic. What's most important about this is that this thrives in very hard winters. So if you love garlic and if you stay in this great old state of Michigan, this is the number one garlic to grow because this loves the hard conditions of a cold winter. The Persian star garlic. This is a lovely garlic. I give this garlic a 10 for spiciness, but also for its sweetness. One thing about this garlic itself, the Persian star, and you see the colors. These are vivid colors right here. When you see a garlic bulb that is bright in color, that is the true origin of that garlic species itself. The less color you see in the garlic, it is that type of garlic is commercially cultivated, like the garlic you see in grocery stores. So even though that is still a garlic itself that's in the grocery stores, but it's cultivated rapidly and it doesn't have the zing and the taste of a true heritage garlic. So when you see the bold colors in different garlics from purple to lavender to red, those are true authentic garlics. The Russian red. This one I've seen at the farmer's market. I have grown this variety and it's a terrific garlic. Now, the thing about this one, once you get the cloves of this one, all your friends gonna want your garlic. So when you grow Russian red, I will give this one a 9 to a 10 because of the complexity of the starch and the complexity of the sugars. It's good for making, I would say, black garlic. Black garlic itself is a treat to do. If you would love to grow your own garlic, I would suggest to make your own black garlic. And this is one of the best garlics to do that with. Now we have the Roja garlic. Like I mentioned earlier, the colors. This garlic itself was grown in the Northwest Pacific, and this is a very red, spicy garlic. And I mean, it talks about being deep purple. I never seen any of them purple. I've seen them more red and pink. And I love this garlic. The Ann Arbor's Farmers Market, I've seen quite a few vendors that have this, but they have small bulbs of this variety. If you do get the opportunity to grow this variety, I suggest start early in October, rich in compost, rich in manure, and layer the mulch. And please grow this variety because you will love the Roja garlic. And believe me, when you see a red garlic bulb, and the complexity of the colors and making it into different dishes, you would be amazed how the Roja and the other varieties of garlic that I explained about has a different taste. Now, the purple marble, this one is very funny. And like it says, marble purple. Now, about this garlic, it loves the cold environment. But if it's not cold enough, it doesn't grow big enough. And having this garlic, I would say, you know, to pre-condition this garlic, put it in your refrigerator and have it chilled for at least 4 to 6 weeks before taking it outside because it loves to being in a cold environment. Now, this is Big Boy. This one is one of my least favorite garlics. It does grow big, but it doesn't hold a good shelf life. With this one itself, it's very faint purple to light lavender, but again, it doesn't hold a good shelf life for me. Um, it grows well. It has a nice taste, but it just with this type of variety of garlic of Big Boy, it can stay in a cool, dry place for about 6 months, and then you can start to see it sprout. Even if it's in a cool, dark place, this will still sprout. So this is one of my least favorite garlics to grow because of the shelf life. Music. Everyone loves music. Well, this type of variety of garlic grows all over the United States. I myself, I partnered with Great Lakes Garlic, and they grow this right here in Michigan. So music is one of the favorite garlics to grow. It performs real well. It loves this cold environment, and let me tell you, when you have a garlic bulb that's the size of a tennis ball, this is the one. Now, this is the one that we talk about that has the uniform, ununiform areas that it doesn't grow um, in the fall, but it grows into the springtime. It's a nice variety of garlic, but for me, this is soft neck garlic. Like I talked about earlier, we have the artichoke garlic that has a mild flavor. We have the Indian garlic. We have the Chilean garlic. We have different varieties of this. And for me, a lot of people here in the Washtenaw County area, they grow a lot of soft neck garlic. So for me, it's myself. I would say that if you would like to try soft neck garlic, um, downtown Home and Garden is the best place to get soft neck garlic early in the spring or now in the fall. That if you want hard neck garlic, but downtown Home and Garden, downtown Ann Arbor is a good place to get this type of garlic. Silver Rose soft neck garlic, which is an interesting type of variety of garlic. This it grows in all regions, and this one it loves to be braided. If you never braided garlic before, this is the best one to braid because it lasts a long time. So when you go into a lot of Italian restaurants and you see the braided garlic hanging on the walls or in the back areas, this is the garlic that they braid, and this it stores real well. This one compared to the other garlic that I told you, it doesn't store real well. This one will last for 6 months without sprouting. Curing your garlic is very important. The best way to cure your garlic is in a cool, dry, semi dark place that has plenty of ventilation. Without ventilation, you will start to set up mold and mildew. So when you pull your garlic out, you want to cure it for a good 6 to 8 weeks. Harvesting garlic is very easy. Use a pitchfork. Be careful by using a pitchfork or with any tool. You want to be at least 4 to 5 inches away from the base of the garlic. Step and pull back. Be careful on your back because if you grew a good successful supply of garlic and it has good root system, it will stay in the ground until you pull back and lift out. So make sure that you use your mechanics real well, exercise first, and wear proper equipment, clothing, have sunscreen, have a hat and loose clothing and good pair of boots, and just have a nice day at harvesting garlic. Once you harvest it, let it, like I said, in a cool, dry, ventilated, semi-lit area. You can hang garlic like this on a roll. You can hang them upside right this way. But the best way to also do garlic is upside down because it speeds the process of curing the stalks and the leaves. And you can braid it depending on variety. You can braid almost all garlic leaves and stems, but the best garlics is also a few soft necks and all the hard necks. And you can braid them, put them in a nice dark, semi dark, or semi lit, cool, ventilated area and keep an eye on them so that way you can see if there's any mold building up on them. Rotate them and just make sure that they're spaced out and you can knock off the dirt. Don't use water. Use um, a nice lint brush. Use your hand, and believe me, the dirt will fall right off. This is Farmer TC. When I harvest our garlic, this is a lot of garlic that we harvest, and the most rewarding about this is that when we grew the garlic, we give it all away, and that's most important. Is that whatever we grow, we like to invite people to learn about growing, learn about weeding. That way they can control the weeds, identify the weeds, and harvest the produce and take it with them because the reward is what you grow is what you can have. So all this garlic that you see here, we did give away. Most important things, we are in the north. So I'm gonna start with the north first. We are in a long day, growing onions, growing scallions, growing leeks, growing any alliums that are long day. You always want to make sure it reaches 14 to 16 hours. Very important. I know that's confusing, but think of it this way. When we think about spring forward and fall backwards, this where that plays in mind because we live in the north, we live above the Mason-Dixie line from Virginia, West Virginia, all the way into Sacramento, California, and above we have a long day cycle. So that means we have a longer cycle of growing in a short amount of time. So we only have 4 to 5 months of growing optimum time from April to October. Intermediate day, meaning from the middle of Upper California to the mid California to, I would say, all the way across South Carolina. That is a big swath of the Mason Dixie line. They only have 12 to 14 hours of daylight. So they don't have the much sunlight as we do, but they have the heat and they can grow those type of plants where they have a good 6 to 9 months of growing optimum time. So it's very important to know that when you're growing in that region, it is very important to grow the crops in that area of intermediate day grow cycle. I know this is a lot, but I apologize, but I'm just trying to give you the basics so that way, wherever you move, you will always remember how to grow alliums and garlic. For the short day, even though that you are in the south, the difference between the north, which is the green, long day, and the short day in the orange is because they have more heat, they have tropical heat that plants thrive to grow quicker, bolder, and longer from 9 to 11 months compared to 4 months here. So they have 10 to 12 days of daylight. So it's very interesting how plants are structured to grow. If you want to grow plants, always go to burpeeseed.com, go to Johnny Seed, those and NS Seed Company. Hopefully, I got their name right, and I apologize if I don't. But those are seed companies that provide everyone in their region with the zone region where they can buy plants that's fitted for their climate. Onion planting guide. Onions do not want to be pushed in the ground all the way just like the garlic. Onions want to be just lightly upon the ground. Remove the plants from the box immediately because it can create a fungus that can kill the plants and also spread diseases to other plants. Do not put soil or water on any onions until you're ready for them to grow, which is very important. And that's right here at number 2. The moment you put any water or soil on any onions, it starts the growth cycle of an onion to start to grow. And they will start growing continuously until they're taking from that environment. So until you are ready to grow any onions, do not put any soil or water on them until you are planting them. Keep them cool and keep them dry until you can plant them because you don't want infestation of diseases. They can start within 3 to 7 to almost 14 days. So always keep an eye on them. Blight is most important. It can be spread by just sharing it in a container. When you have your containers, always use a 5-gallon bucket or some type of wash tub with just a little bleach solution, meaning more water than a little bleach. So that way it will decontaminate, or I would say kill the bacteria or germs in that environment. Always clean your areas fully because you don't want to spread diseases to another area. You always want to wash, rinse, and dry your pitchfork, your shovels, your rakes. Because if you take a contaminated tool from your area and take it to another person's garden, you just spread it a disease. So it's always best to clean your equipment, clean your pots, clean your trays. If you're not going to reuse them, recycle them. So that way you can cut down on different types of diseases. This is a sprouting anatomy of an onion. Like I said, this is the sprouts. Once you start putting dirt onto an onion or water onto an onion or any type of allium besides garlic, they start to sprout and they will take off to grow. Keep the skin on the garlic, keep the skin on the onions because it keeps the bacteria out and it keeps the healthy bacteria in. So even if you break open a garlic bulb and maybe one or maybe two of the cloves, some of the skin has taken off, save the outer silver wrapping of the garlic, put that into the ground and put the garlic with it. So that way it keeps the bacteria away from it. Onions want to be planted at least, and you look at your baby finger, the first line on the tip of your baby finger. They want to be planted a half an inch into the soil. Water immediately. Within the first 3 to 7 days and further out to 10 days, the roots of that onion will start to sprout and grow. So it's always good to lightly push an onion into the ground at least a half an inch, no further than that, because onions, the skin of the onion wants to breathe and expand. And the more that onion grows and expand, move that dirt away from it on the outside so that way it can expand to be a larger bulb. Because the one thing you don't want to have is that you spent all summer growing that onion and it didn't grow the way you wanted it. The more dirt that's around the outer of the onion, the more that onion is going to stay small. So spread that dirt away from the onion all the way around it. Long as it's still in the ground about a half an inch, that's all it needs because those roots are going to grow to at least 3 to 4 inches into the soil and it's going to anchor itself. You can grow onions by the seed. You can grow onions by the sprout. You can grow onions by the bulb. The different types of onions depends on what type of onion you want to grow. So if you want to grow Lisbon onion, you grow them by seed and sprout. If you want to grow red onion, white onion, Spanish onions by the sets, you want to grow them by the sprout. If you want to grow onion sets itself, you want to get the new onions right here in the little bulb right here. If you got an onion that's like this, these last three, these are already established onions. The only onion that you can transfer and regrow other than destroying its structure is walking Egyptian onion, which would be an onion that's like this, which is one of the strongest and one of the heirloom onions to grow, which is a walking Egyptian onion. And that's one of the onions that's like in this stage that you can successfully transfer without disrupting the growth cycle. Lisbon or green onion, you can grow them like this. Green onions and sprouts is like this. Green bulbs or red bulbs or white crimson is like this early spring. Preparation of the soil is very important. You want to make sure that the area is lightly moist. You want to make sure that when you plant your onions or alliums, specifically onions in this category, you want to prepare the soil so that way they don't be harmed, they don't become dormant. You want to make sure that the dirt around it don't be dry. You want to make sure onions are watered 3 times a week, no more than that. The more you put water on onions, they're just like carrots, they will split. So you want to make sure that you want to lightly water your onions. You can cut off the tops, you can harvest the tops every 10 days, and the onion will still grow. The most important thing, like I said earlier, do not remove the plants from the box. Keep them in a well ventilated area, in a cool area until you are ready to plant them. Do not put them in soil or water because they will grow, they will sprout, and they will also start to carry diseases. So it's also remember to not disturb that process. Prepping the soil is very important. If you want to grow onions, make sure you have loose draining soil. They need direct sunlight. They love sunlight. They love a nice, rich, crumbly soil. They don't like compact soil. If they don't have aerated soil, they're not going to breathe and the roots are not going to breathe. Keep the weeds away from them. Do not use any herbicides. If you use any type of chemical, I would say use cornmeal around the base. It keeps the slugs away. Use leaf mulch, but not too close to the plants because you don't want to encourage bacteria or disease around the base of the onion. What type of soil and what type of acidic and how much pH. You want to have an onion that's below 7.0. So think of it this way. You want to have nice, sweet soil. You don't want to have orange peelings in it when you compost. You don't want to have lemons, rinds in your compost. You don't want to have cheese in your compost because these are all bad things for your compost. You want to have nice, sweet compost. This is a chart. Like I said, if you can think of your pinky finger, 1 inch to a half an inch. That's it. You want to fertilize around the onion or around the alliums, but not directly on the alliums because you want it to be a growth hormone synthetic compound that wants to help growth. If you add any synthetic hormone growth directly to the plant and you pull that out, you put that chemical into your system. So it's always best to use natural fertilizers, not synthetic hormone growth. The maturity of a plant depends on when you planted it. The best time to plant onions, if you have onion sets, is in early spring, such as March. Once the ground starts to break or the snow starts to stop, it's best to plant onions with cold crops. The earlier, the better. March is the ideal time. And it's still going to be snow out there, but this is a cold hardy plant that loves the cold. So onions is good for that. If you want to plant onion seeds, you can plant onion seeds in the fall. They will grow over winter, but remember, any onions that you over winter will turn to seed next year. So it's always best to grow onions in the springtime so you won't have the possibilities of overwintering and making your onions go to seed the following year. What type of fertilizer? Well, the best fertilizer is the best thing to use is fish emulsions, compost tea, compost, aged rotten manure 6 months out. That's the best fertilizer to use. Not directly onto the plant, but around the plant. And once that depletes, redress the plant with or plants with more compost, not in the whole vicinity of the area because you don't want to promote weeds to grow because you added compost over the whole area. Localize your compost to the plant itself. Water thoroughly after planting, which is most important. A lot of people plant things and then they take off, they forget the water. Plants want to drink of water just like we want to drink of water after a good workout. So when you transplant a plant a plant, sprout a plant, put a seed in the ground, water it because that plant wants to grow. And the best way to grow it is when you grow it, water it, and fertilize it, weed it, and harvest it. It's most important. So always water regularly. Get in the cycle of always watering early in the morning, late in the evening. So that way it gets optimum time to grow and it don't take up the resources of depleting the hydration when it's too hot outside. Adjust your time when you grow your plants when it needs watering. The best time to water, like I said, is early in the morning or late in the evening. Fertilizer, like I said earlier, if you want to use different types of soil amendments or fertilizers or chemicals on it, that's upon you and what you want to grow. I grow natural. I do use chemicals as needed, but 100% of me do not want to use chemicals. Some things I have to add chemicals, such as sulfur, such as calcium sulfate. I have to do those specifically for fruit trees because of worm growth and caterpillars. But everything else into the garden itself, I don't use chemicals. I just use ground up fish water, fish emulsions, compost, and aged manure. But it's up to the individual if they want to use man made chemicals. And if you do use any chemicals, please read the packaging. Please write down your information so that way you know what you put into your soil. So just in case if you give your plants away or your food away and someone has an allergic reaction, you have something to go back on to reference what you put into your plants. Weeding is very important. When you see a weed, pull it. Every time you see a weed, pull it. Because if you don't let that weed grow, it's not going to sprout. So the best way to do it is lay a light mulch around your plants. Use straw, not hay, because straw is very important because it doesn't have a lot of seeds into it. Whereas in hay has a lot of straw and it has a lot of seeds. So the more you put hay down and you water around the plants, you're going to start getting sprouts of hay growing, such as straw. You're not going to get a lot of seeds growing in it. Straw helps promote moisture, it preserves moisture, and it controls weeds. Leaf mulch. Know where you get your leaf mulch. You can put leaf mulch around it. And once those break down into the soil around the top of the soil, add another layer on top. So that way you would be adding more soil amendments and nutrients to your soil in that local area. So when you're done harvesting and cultivating your soil, you have added leaf mulch to the soil or straw to the soil. When you see onions like this, like I said, oil onions want to be lightly put onto the top of the ground, just like this. This is ideal of growing your onions because if you cover them all the way around, they're not going to grow. This is the ideal way of growing an onion. Harvest and storing your onions is very important. Depending on the variety of onions, depending on when you put them into the ground, and depending on how long you want them to be in the ground is up to you. For me, if I'm growing 100 onions, I'm only going to take out 75 onions. The other 25, I'm leaving in the ground for the following year so they can overwinter and they will turn into seed. So I will save seeds and give out seeds to the community. So that way I will share from what I've grown. The 75 that I have taken out of the ground, storing those is very important. When the leaves turn brown, when they turn yellow, it's the ideal time to take the onions out of the ground, lay them on top of the ground. Rodents, animals, they're not going to come to your onions. Lay them on top of the ground so they can cure for at least 3 to 5 days. So that way they kill any fungus and bacteria, and it will help you and help the onions a lot more because curing your onions, if you don't have a space right then and there when you want to pull your onions out, leave them on top of the ground. That way they can cure on top of the ground and just rotate them. Another thing is to remember, always make sure when you use your onions, keep them in a well ventilated space because without ventilation, you're creating a disease, you're creating fungus, and it starts to mold and mildew. So always remember a well ventilated room so that way it gets air continuously. Once you do that, you're learning how to cure your onions. Now, storing your onions is most important. Like I said, cool, well ventilated location, such as a garage, in a cellar, in a mesh bag, in netting, wherever that you want to store these onions. Cool, dark place is most important. Growing shallots is very interesting. Growing shallots starts off with one right here, and it can grow up to 4 to 7 like this. Growing early in spring, putting them in the ground just like onions, putting them into an inch to an inch and a half. Now these you have to push into the ground. They do not want to be left on top of the ground like onions. They want to be surrounded by dirt. The more they are surrounded and not too deep, the more it's going to create more offshoots. So it's very important. Shallots are very strong. They are very bold in taste. Right here, it tells you you can harvest them 110 to 120 days. But I'm going to tell you, living in Michigan, it will take you, I say, 130 days to grow a good, successful shallot. So when you grow your shallots, you want to have good, rich soil and good drainage soil. It loves to have coffee grounds around it. It loves the acidic. So if you have used coffee grounds, this is the best time to spread them around your shallots. Once you harvest your shallots, leave them on top of the ground. They're going to start to turn yellow, just like on this one's right here. Just let them stay there. And then after 2 or 3 days to even 7 days, you can pull them apart and break them apart, just like this. You won't be able to braid these like garlic, and you cannot braid onions like garlic, but they will have the long tassels, just as garlic. You can save the tassels, you can chop those up, and you can put that into beef stock. You can put that into vegetable stock. It can be used into a lot of different recipes. French onion soup is good for it. So these tops can be used in plenty of other things. It doesn't take that long to grow a shallot. If you never had, I would say go to the local market, the farmer's market, an Asian market, or one of the Mexican markets, and get you some shallots. I would say get you 1 to 5 pounds, and just experiment growing different varieties of shallots, and you'll be amazed how versatile this plant will add to your growing palette. If you store it correctly, it can be stored up to 8 months. Mine never made it to 8 months because we ate them all. But I would say, yes, it will stay up to 8 months, but we just didn't grow enough. And it's a very good plant to grow. We grew 4 different varieties of shallots. Leeks are an interesting monster. Growing leeks, you want to make sure that you have hill mounds, and you want to grow leeks 4 to 6 inches apart, but you want to grow them in 6 to 12 feet rows. And reason why I say this is because leeks, take a pencil, push it down from the long pencil all the way to the base of the eraser, and pull that pencil out. Drop your leek seedling into that hole. Do not cover it. Water lightly. Leeks are very thin and frail. If you surround them in dirt and if you suffocate them in dirt, they will not grow. So sticking a pencil into a ground all the way down to 10 inches and pulling it out and dropping your leek seedling in there and just water lightly, that leek starts to expand into that cavity to at least 18 inches large. Leeks are very important to grow because it adds nutrients to the soil. It keeps grubs out of the garden. It also keeps other pests out of the garden. So if you get a chance to grow leeks, the best time to grow leeks is very early spring. So if you plant onions in early spring, at least 2 to 3 weeks after you grew your sprouting, growing your onions, to start planting your leeks. I would say early April to mid-April is the best time. Anytime after that window is a little bit too late because you want to make sure you have at least 140 days of growing of leeks. And when you grow any leeks, onions, or garlic, water them 3 times a week, and that's it. The more water, the more splitting and the more disease. So you want to just lightly water your plants. This is the leeks that I was telling you about. You put a hole in the ground with a pencil and you drop the whole leek into that hole. Do not cover it, do not backfill it. It will expand itself because leeks love to grow in a dark, cool environment. And putting a 10-inch hole into the ground and just dropping this in there, that's why when you go to the grocery store and you cut off this right here and you see a little dirt and a little sand, it's because that's how leeks are grown. They love a nice, tempered growing environment. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this today. I want to thank Great Lakes Garlic. I want to thank Growing Hope. I want to thank you as the listener for participating. And I want to thank everyone that had the opportunity to listen to me and to discuss about growing garlic. Again, I want to thank Growing Hope as the host for providing this opportunity to discuss this with the community garden. If you have any questions, please reach out to Growing Hope. If you have any other questions, if you'd like to reach us directly, my name is TC. You can contact us at realrunacres@gmail.com or realrunacres.com itself. And I want to thank you. And if you have any questions, just reach out and let me know. Anyone have any questions?
Hi, I'm Star. I do have a question. My question is, I top off my beds with chicken manure. It's partially done, but I top it off now for spring. will it be old enough, even though it's going through winter, to be able to plant in it in the spring? Will it be aged enough?
Now, what did you top it off with?
I top it off with partially aged chicken manure.
Okay, I would say, how old is your manure?
Uh, chicken coops. The top layer is probably but underneath it, it's old because I do deep litter.
Okay, I would say, going out from today, even though that you have already done it now, always keep a pile of your poultry manure into its pile itself, so that way it can break down, and always
Mhm.
constantly add, I would say, um, brown compost and green compost to it, so it can build it out and it can break down even more. So that way you can, don't have a strong concentrate of chicken manure that don't properly break down.
Right, because I know over the winter that's going to slow it down.
Yes, and by adding coffee grounds, I would say adding co- for an example, you have one pile of chicken manure sitting in a pile. Add a good 4 or 5 cups of used coffee grounds to that,
Uh-huh.
and then add shredded lettuce on top of it, or shredded grass or green manure on top of that. Stir it and let it break down, and then add another layer of coffee grounds to that, just a light layer. And reason for you use two different applications of coffee grounds. The coffee grounds inside is going to break down the green compost. The outer layer of that coffee grounds on top is going to break down, and it's going to heat up, and it's going to, every time snow hits it or water hits it, it's going to break down, that manure. You follow
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I do.
Because
I do.
the little grains are little tiny grains, but they're not broken down, but they are pasteurized because they were heated up in the coffee.
Right, right.
But when the heat of the solar, sunlight hits those little coffee grounds, it add little fragmented heat sources to that compost.
I gotcha.
Okay,
Okay, that works. Now, would it be better for me to use I have grass, leaf, and I do have comfrey. Would it be better to use comfrey as my green?
use it all.
Use it
Use it
all
all.
off. Okay. All right. I will do that. Help it break it down. I
Yeah,
thank you.
because the most thing you want is that you want to have a good supply of nitrogen rich compost. And if
Right,
you use all your chicken manure compost up in one application, you're not going to have enough because you
right.
deplete. So if you expand that by having a good rich nitrogen based compost for chicken manure,
Hmm.
you expanded your volume. That's what I'm trying to create, is that you want to create a bigger volume for the little bit that you have to
Right.
further along your growing cycle.
I got it. Totally understand.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's great. Um, okay, good. So then I'm planting my onions in the spring in that bed that I have the chicken manure. It's just a layer on top of my regular like worm compost. I use leaf. I use whatever I got going on out here. Um, it'd be okay to go ahead and do my onions in the spring in that same garden, right?
Well, just make sure that your manure has decomposed
Right.
within 100, after 180 days, and you have
Hmm.
stirred up the manure and it has broken down after 180 days, you're good to go.
Okay. 180 days.
Anything that's before 180 days is not ideal dressing to put on any type of food.
Right. Okay. 180 days. All right. I think I got that then. That looks good. All right. I thank you very much.
You're welcome. And
Yeah,
you
I
have
learned a lot today. Thanks so much.
no problem at all. And thank you. Debbie, Julius, you have any questions? Well, I just want to let everyone know again that, now is the best time to plant hardneck garlic. I don't know how long or how much weather we are going to have like we have currently, but you want to make sure that you keep an eye on the weather, specifically here in Michigan, because at any given Sunday, the ground freezes. It's almost too late to start digging and putting garlic in. So you want to get it in as soon as you can, as fast as you can.
Yeah, I think I was hoping that I wasn't too early. I did mine like 2 days ago.
Oh no, you're right on time, and it's going to enjoy it. And for me, we're getting ready to plant. I would say probably about 65 pounds of garlic to carry us.
Whoa.
So we got a handful.
Yeah. I only did I planted 6 pounds of music. Yeah, I think it was 6 pounds of music. And then chick neck, I think that's called. Only a
Yeah.
pound of that. But I did that like on edgings of some of my other gardens.
Now, have you grown garlic before?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
Which
This
ones
is
you
this is my third year.
which one do you prefer? Music or chestnut?
I love music.
Okay.
I like music because I like the way it tastes raw, and I like how big the bulbs are. I mean, each little what do you call it? Each section is almost as big as a whole garlic clove, a whole garlic head. They're huge.
Yes.
And when you freeze dry them or you preserve them, they're I love them. I've tried other ones and they're just small. Dealing with those small heads, I can't stand it.
Well, I would say this, and I'm glad you brought that part up. When you separate your garlic cloves, and when you have the smaller garlic cloves, plant those separately from the big garlic cloves. So that way you know that your larger cloves is will produce a bigger bulb.
Right. My first year, I planted like everything. My second year, I only planted the big ones, and I just used the small ones for cooking. But planting small ones, not doing it. It's just certain ones though. They just didn't seem like they produced as much as big as the music did for me. I don't know why, but the music was really easy, and the chestnut was. I like that one too. But I want to try some more. I like how you broke down all the different kinds of garlics. I didn't know all the information, so I'm definitely gonna try maybe next year because my garlic bed is full right now. But I do want to try some of those, like the black garlic from the Russian red.
Yes.
I definitely want to try that next year. So
Now, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't get to mention that earlier. I just talked briefly about it. I would suggest um, try if you get a chance, if you see a yard sale or if you see a secondhand store, get that. If they have a rice cooker, get it because that's the best way to actually make your own black garlic at a cheaper price.
really,
Yes,
okay,
because all it takes is a rice cooker. Put 9 to 12 garlic cloves into that rice cooker, wrap them up in plastic, and just 18 to 24 hours, you got your black garlic.
18 to 24 hours. Okay,
That's just a start. Now, the longer you let it stay in there, you can let it stay in there for about 7 days. You can let it stay in there for 10 days. The longer you let it stay into that rice cooker, the more darker the black garlic gets. And the reason why I call it black garlic because you're cooking it at a lower temperature.
right. Wow. Okay, I've seen where people put them. This might be weird, but they've put them in compost bins. They actually put the garlic wrapped and put it in the middle of a hot compost bed. Have you seen that?
I've seen that, but you got to be very fortunate to have a hot compost bed to be at least 150 degrees. If you
Right,
don't have
especially
that
for
from the
7
start,
days.
if you don't have that from the start, you're just putting garlic in compost.
Right, exactly. I didn't know that you could do it in a rice cooker.
Yeah, that's where I learned how to make garlic, black garlic, and yeah, if you can just yeah, because the garlic, what is it called? The rice cooker is at a low temperature anyway,
Right.
and to prolong it, like I said, you can do it in 24 hours, but you won't get a true black garlic. But if you do it for 7 to 10 days, plastic wrap it and put it in there, you got your own black garlic.
All right. I'll try that next. Or I might just try. Can you buy just Russian garlic somewhere?
Yeah, you can
Russian
buy
red?
you can buy Russian red at different cultivators. I don't buy it. I normally I would trade my music or my garlic that I have with different farmers at the farmers market. That's how I trade my garlic.
Okay. And you
Yeah.
traded for Russian red?
Yes. I mean, there's the
Okay.
if you get a chance, if you live in the Washington area, there's a market called Dexboro Farmers Market. I've seen it there last month. There's the Plymouth Farmers Market, and also there's a few black farmers that are in Keep Growing Detroit that have different varieties of garlic. And if I see it, I will try and snag some.
Okay. All right. I will keep my eye out for those. I'm out in Jackson or
Okay.
near Jackson. I'm in Horton, Michigan. So I'm a little ways, but I will definitely look for this Russian red. And I'm gonna try that
I mean,
before
it's
I
a neat
grow it.
variety. I like it because it's bold and red, but you can do it in music. You can do it in chestnut. Any red garlic, any bold red heritage garlic is good for it.
Okay. So any bold red. All right. All right. I got that down. All right. Great. Thanks again.
No, no problem at all. And in a couple of weeks, I will be having another class about tulips, daffodils, crocus, and hyacinths.
Okay. I'll be there.
All right, that'd be great. Nice meeting you guys, and you guys all take care.
All right. Thanks, Will.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.